Today, we are joined by experts, government officials, industry leaders, and academicians who are all committed to address the skill gap and continue to work towards the growth of our youth. This transformation is not just about imparting skills. It is about bridging the gap between education, employment, and entrepreneurship. Over the 2 days, we will engage in meaningful discussions, explore successful models from within and outside the region, and work collectively towards defining actionable solutions that will lay the foundation of skilling in J&K. We will now begin with the first panel discussion for the day, Market Needs versus Skill Gaps in J&K's Workforce. This session aims to address a critical challenge that we face today, the alignment of our skill development programs with the evolving needs of the industry. I now invite our esteemed panelists to the stage. Mr. M.A. Alam from CII. He's not here. Ms. Jaya Awasthi from CII. Can we welcome the panelists to the round of applause? Mr. Prashant Sharma from Lalit Grand Palace Hotel. Mr. Salil Lal from Maruti Suzuki. Mr. Iftikhar Ahmed Bakri from J&K Bank. Do we have Mr. Iftikhar here? On VC, we have with us Mr. Praveen Dwivedi from VBox and Mr. Sandeep Kumar from Sodexo. I now request my colleague, Rhythm Pennell, manager at GDI Partners, and team lead for Mission Yuva, who will be moderating this session for you. Over to you.
Thank you, Rashmi, and I welcome all of you here. In the second half of the conference today, we will now be moving towards more focused and in-depth discussions around what the future of skilling could look like in J&K. And that's where all of you would be requested to contribute to these insightful discussions by sharing your thoughts and questions that you might have openly. I welcome all the panelists along with the Chief Secretary, sir, for the discussion here. So the topic of the panel discussion is the market needs versus skill gaps in J&K workforce. Through this session, we will try to focus on 4 themes largely. 1, we will identify the most critical skill gaps that exist today in the youth of J&K to make them employable and ready for the workforce. Second, we will also try to understand the relevance of current skilling programs introduced by the governments in the past. Third, we will also understand the industry perspectives more deeply to make our workforce more future ready. And fourthly, we will also explore the expectations of the employers to ensure that all of that feeds into the curriculum and delivery of our courses in the future in our skilling curriculum. For that, we today have around 7 panelists. While Rashi has briefly mentioned the names, I will just do a quick round of introductions for all of them before we go into a focused discussion. So we have on VC with us Mr. Praveen Dwivedi, a labor market analyst and also a co-author of the India Skilling Report in 2025, who holds deep expertise in national and regional skilling employment and employability trends. We also have with us Ms. Jaya Awasthi, who leads the Confederation of India's Industry Skilling Initiative in J&K as principal in health skills at CII J&K. We also have with us Mr. M.A. Alam. We don't have Mr. M.A. Alam from CII, but we also have Mr. Sandeep Kumar, who has also joined us through a VC, and again is an HR at Sodexo Services Private Limited. He holds a professional experience in overseeing recruitment, training, and workforce development for India's one of the largest training facility management companies. We also have with us Mr. Prashant Sharma, General Manager, Lalit Grand Palace Hotel. It is one of JNK's most luxurious hospitality brands today, and any tourist who visits JNK has Lalit up their name, one of the preferred choices when they book it. He also holds more than 15 years of experience in India as well as globally in this industry as well. We also have with us Mr. Salil Lal, who brings with them about 30 years of experience in industrial relations, workforce development, and HR strategy. And lastly, we have with us Mr. Iftikhar Ahmed Bakal, who brings over 30 years of experience in JNK Bank. With that, I will now move to more focused discussions, and I will be going over each and every panelist. I will be opening the house with Mr. Praveen Dwivedi, who has joined with us online today. With his experience in India's Index Skilling Report 2025, we will open the house by discussing and understanding what are some of the challenges that JNK today faces, and what are some of the best practices that we can learn from in JNK. I welcome you, Mr. Praveen, and I would like to hand over to you to understand in more detail while being a part of the team of India Skilling Report 2025, what were some of the insights specifically about JNK that you learned, and what are some of the best practices that exist around us which we can learn from? Mr. Praveen,
thank you so much. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you're on.
So, thank you so much to Shahzad Alamji who got us this opportunity to be a part of this wonderful panel. And I could see Jaya there. Jaya happens to be a great well-wisher, old CIA man, who will be happy publishing India Skills Report for more than a decade now. And thank you to the state government of JNK, and namaste to all the panelists and the members who are listening there. So the question which has come up, how India Skills Report looks at the challenges which we face in the employment. So let's say, let me give you a little background of what India Skills Report is. India Skills Report is the only report in the country which we bring in from a perspective of finding out the best matchmaking in the country, making sure that we reach out to the supply, academia, and the policy makers, and understand where the supply stand post assessment which we do is an online system. We do a lot of outreach to the industry to understand their hiring needs, and we also go to the policy makers to understand where are they in their sense in terms of scaling. And that's how, after a lot of EITs with academia, the industry, and the industry experts, and the policy makers, we come up with this report for India Skills Report. And there's a lot of work which gets into, approximately, we get started every year around the May, June time frame. So we have just started this year work for 2026. Yesterday was World Skills Day, and we have kicked off our 2026 India Skills Report on work, which is going to happen through the students participating to an assessment which is called Global Employability Test. And this test is for 60 minutes, which completely checks your how employable you are with certain attributes. Now, to look at the challenges which we have understood what our last report said, which was published in 2024 for 2025, because all this again are the futuristic report which we do. So the key things which has come up, where we see the employers are really concerned about the workforce what they're getting. The basic and the foremost is the communication skill. So if you look at the data, it says approximately 60% of candidates they are lacking the clear articulation in the workplace, and the communication abilities definitely go. So we definitely have to make sure that since we have a different geography, we have a different accent, we have different with different languages to communicate. But the workplace, that's where the academia and while we are staying through this skills mission, one thing which we need to make sure that the communication still has to come up more, which is accepted, which is understood everywhere. And not only from India's perspective, we have seen the overseas market has opened up already in a great fashion. If you look at for the Indian youths. So communication is one area where we have to be very careful about, that we are imparting or training or skilling around the communication. So communication skill becomes that better. Not only from a speaking and writing point of view, also from the articulation point of view at the workplace. The second, which we see as concern, area of concern would be the problem solving and critical thinking skill sets. Having said that, we have a lot of technology around us, and most of the work today is being done by ChatGPT, AI. The problem solving and self-critical thinking skills, we see this there are fair chances, your individual ability of being actually is might get lost or might get lower down. If you look at from a critical thinking point of view, problem solving skill sets, there are very specific industries where they are needed. So if you look at BFSI, if you look at IT, if you look at healthcare, so these are the skill sets that absolutely, if you look at industry where manufacturing is happening. So all problem solving and critical thinking skill set absolutely happens to be prime, one of the prime needs which employer have. The other one, the third one, and
so we cannot hear you.
I think he stopped speaking because there is a lot of noise from your side. You may have to ask people to stay silent. Raveen, we are not able to hear you.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
So we can you
Till what? Yeah, I can hear you.
please go ahead.
So, did you listen any part of what I said, or it was absolutely blank?
Yeah, we heard you till the point where you were mentioning that how critical thinking and problem solving is also a skill that we need to work on, given a lot of work is done happening through ChatGPT and AI. Post that is where we lost you.
Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate. So coming back to so that's basically readiness is something though which we definitely have to look at from candidate readiness point of view. Their exposure to digital tools and the applied knowledge at the workplace, how they will use it. That's the digital readiness part of it, and that actually reflects to a transition from a classroom learning to a workplace context. So here we have to be very innovative in terms of how do we make sure the candidate who's learning at the classroom while he's doing his academics, and how do we skill them to make sure that they perform in a desired fashion or a desired manner while they transition to the workplace. So those are three there are a few of them, but then these are three prime things I thought I should bring into the panel here. That's from my hands.
Thank you, Mr. Praveen, and thank you for sharing how you lack communication skills, critical thinking, and also we need to ensure the gap that is expanding in the use of digital tools as well. I will now move to asking my next question to Ms. Jia. While Mr. Praveen has brought in a perspective from the academia, industry, and people who've gone into studying in depth around what are the gaps, I would want to understand from you, what is the employer's perspective here? What are some of the skills that employers find consistently missing when they employ a young workforce at workplace?
So first of all, thank you for your moderation, and thank you very much all of you for inviting us and letting us share our inputs. For your question, I come from a certain expertise because I belong to the corporate industry. Right? So I was heading employee and labor relations for Apple for India and Southeast Asia just prior to coming here. I worked with JP Morgan, a couple of others who are very huge employers in India. Right? There are a couple of things that Praveen has already very nicely talked about the communication skills. The opportunity exists. It was great to hear Rajiv Ranjanji this morning because the highlight was industry. At the outset, let me tell you, the industry is looking forward to talent which is employable with the right communication skills, with the right soft skills, which is time management, a lot of things that I saw on the presentation anyway, which has also been validated by data. And the fact that there is a huge market, international mobility as we call it, that has opened up, primarily in sectors like healthcare. If you go back to the era that we've just come out of, there is so much that has opened up with you. The willingness is there, the skills is something, the good part is that it's quite doable and it is not a very difficult challenge to navigate. Most of the industry has its challenges because if you look at a lot of my colleagues and friends sitting here also are running some really good skill initiatives. The youth is looking forward to a certain match with the industry, right? So that may be in terms of location, demographics, a lot of factors come into play. But there are 2 or 3 things that the youth requires today. One is, as I mentioned already, and Praveen also talked about it, communication skills is a must. And we are not talking about English only. We are talking about whichever country that we target, be it Japanese, be it German. There are so many other languages that exist, even in India. That's one. Second is, the youth needs to be counseled. When we talk about social impact, it's not only always about employment and employability. A lot of times they don't know what to do. The talent is there, but they just don't know which way to go. And as a mentor for many people, many young people coming from the background that I do, I can tell you the counseling has made such a difference that people have found their feet at the end of the day. The third thing is around the industry match that we talked about. So demographics and a mapping of the talent. Rajiv Ranjanji, I'll take an input from your side. You talked about J&K being a brand. It indeed is. You talked about how somebody sitting in a remote location might just put J&K as a label and that will start selling. What exactly is the mapping? So the youth here, what all can they train on? In our minds, everything, but there are a couple of things like AI, etc. that we can, these are low-hanging fruit. We can do that right away. But other than that, handicrafts, etc. Why is it not a global brand already? It is in its own measure by its own steam. Why has technology not been used? So there are some more questions at this stage than solutions, but the solutions are not too far off if we just put our minds together. And I think this workshop is a great initiative towards that step. So with that, I pause and later I'll come here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mom, and thank you for highlighting when you say communication skills, it does not always just mean English. I think a recent emphasis under our education policy is also about emphasizing on the need of local languages as well as global languages. Right? Thank you for agreeing on that. I would now move to my next question to Mr. Prashant. From here, I will also take a more sectoral lens in terms of understanding specifically the key highlight sectors of J&K with respect to tourism and hospitality. What are some of the skills that you think you have to work with the youth that you employ in your organization a lot to train them and bridge that gap? So what are some of the skills that you really have to work with the newly employed workforce? And you would prefer, if there were certain government initiatives or programs that were already running to bridge that gap for the workforce that comes into your industry?
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, Anusa, for inviting me to share my insight on tourism and hospitality. And thank you, and thank you, members. It's a great pleasure to be with you. India is facing a paradox. We have lots of youth looking for a job, but they are not skilled. In my 30 years career in India and abroad, I must tell that India is the only country where the maximum skilled institutes, academy, education center are opening or already they are doing well. When we talk about hospitality and tourism, there are 4 areas which I look at as a luxury general manager where I worked in the past in Delhi, and now I'm in Srinagar of hospitality. One is the literacy, right? If you see when I talk about the chef or the kitchen staff, right? He's a third grade, but he's a very skilled person. So there is a mismatch. Right? He's not getting a job because of uncertainty. And that I've seen here, because our system doesn't allow him to be on board in hospitality because he doesn't have certificate of 10th metric car, yeah, 12th car. But he's a very good waza. He's a very good cook. He's a culinary expert. He knows continental, he knows Indian, he knows tandoori, he knows everything. But he's not that good. The one gentleman I met recently was crying for him. Then I took him. I said, okay, no problem, I'll take my responsibility. Now he's one of the best person who's making the good food. So where the skill comes, and literacy, necessity. The second, the technical, one gentleman was talking about GI and other digital aspect, which we train people when they come to luxury place. Like it's very important in today's age, the future hoteliers, future people will learn the digital aspect of life, because that is the future of the global aspect. The third we talked about, the gentleman was talking about the communication. There are 2 communications, one is written and verbal, but also we, as a knowledge hospitality, working on the sign language, which when I was joining as general manager, I was taught for the sign language, which is for the deaf and not deaf. So this is one of the best things which I learned in hospitality. Then we are talking about the gender disparity. Some of the non-metro city, there is lots of potential, but people are not reaching there. In Jammu Kashmir also, I always hear, from the global tourists, there are 3 places. Right, one is Srinagar, Pahalgam, and Gulmarg. So we are not going to and exploring the other places also, which are very, very beautiful, and the scenery. So this is my view, but as far as hotel industry is concerned, we have soft skill training models, hard skill training models, and the third one, which is very important, the mind mapping and emotional intelligence. Because we deal with people internationally, in India and globally. So that is very important for our youth to understand how the things are going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kushal. And I think what has been emerging out is clearly one, the use of technology going forward across all sectors, and secondly, just the nuances of communication that we are hearing from all panel members in terms of looking at sign languages, mind mapping, emotional intelligence. So thank you for sharing that. I will now move to Mr. Sandeep for my next question, who is joined us through VC and is a human resources manager at Sodexo Services. Sir, just was checking first, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Right. So my question to you, sir, is what kind of heavy lifting as an employer you have to do during the onboarding of the recent recent youth, recent people that you employ in your organization, and where you see the scope to partner for organizations like yours with the government and existing training partners to strengthen the overall initiatives.
If I am allowed to ask you the question once again because I could not hear it properly.
Yeah, happy to
Can you repeat your
yeah,
question?
happy to repeat, sir. So I was asking that what kind of heavy lifting do you have to do, organizations like yours have to do for the people that you employ in your organization, and where do you see the potential and scope to partner with existing training partners as well as government to strengthen the overall skilling initiatives of the government?
Okay, thank you for this and thank you for giving me this opportunity. So what I understand, so let me introduce myself first. So Sodexo is a French MNC which is into the facility management and food services. And when I speak about Sodexo and talk about the sector skill councils, we are majorly connected to tourism and hospitality sector skill council. In fact, we are one of the founding members of that sector skill council. We are also largely attached to home management and caregiving sector skill council because a big portion of the people come from that. And care economy is going to be a big economy in the years to come. I'll tell you why. And then the third one is some slightly in the healthcare segment because we are doing some part of assistance to the nursing team and the non-medical team in the hospitals. So with that in context, if I look at the current ecosystem of government initiatives under Pradhan Mantri Kausal Vikas Yojana or Deen Dayal Upadhyay Kausal Vikas Yojana or many other state schemes, what I find, there are two things. One is we have created an infrastructure of training partners. We have created an infrastructure of all the QPs. Everything is done. But where we need support is the job for which you are training people. Are they really interested in doing that job? Is the first thing which we need to reflect. Because lots of people, they don't know whether they are actually going to do this job, whether this is job fit for them. And I have been advocating that we can start with a small psychometric test to understand, particularly for service industry, like Prasanji was also talking about. There is an attitude which is required for the service industry. Do you have that attitude? Can that be checked before the counseling is done and is guided to the right kind of courses? That is one. Number two, when you come to that willingness, particularly I have experience in J&K and I'm sorry to say, I have signed multiple MOUs with J&K government in different schemes. But I don't get people. Why? Because people get trained. At one point of time, we train them outside J&K also so that they get adapted to the new environment. They get trained and they go back to their villages. So they are getting trained, they are getting skilled, but they are not ready to work. Then, so that is something which we need to do. And the root cause is they were not given the orientation of the job or the entire context where they need to go and work. So that is something which we need to work on. The third thing is, and this may be like an irony, all of us are talking about skilling people. Most of the jobs which these people get after getting skilled in all the centers which are run by the government-aided centers, they get a job which is classified in the labor law as unskilled. So you are skilling people but putting them in the unskilled job. So there is a clear gap between understanding of the Ministry of Skill Development and the Ministry of Labor. So if the Ministry of Skill Development is talking about skilling people, lakhs of people are getting skilled, if you have stamped them as skilled, then why they are getting a job on, because all those job roles are classified under us. So that is one where the government needs to pay very close attention. And it is related to the willingness to do that work. Moment you put them on a higher level in terms of unskilled to semi-skilled to high-skilled, the dignity of labor will go up. And with that dignity, the interest in that job will go up. And that is where I think we are missing, we are not able to connect the dots. This is one of the submissions which I have. Looking at the opportunities which the industry can provide today and in the days to come, talking about all these industries which I talk about, if you look at it from international mobility point of view, there are countries where looking for people who have the language proficiency and like caregivers, hospitality related people in Germany, Japan, there are lots of people who are required and they will get good amount of, but can we
So your video is stuck.
get some kind of support to somebody in a care economy, like a care? Can you also teach them a train for German, and that soft loan can be provided so that the employee, the candidate goes and earns and pays it back. So those are some of the areas where I think we need to work together. Talking about unskilled, uneducated people doing skilled job, government has created a very beautiful vehicle called Recognition of Prior Learning (RPL), and we need to look at all as an industry. I look at all my employees who are not educated but they are skilled. So we need to get them the certificate of RPL. I know the power of RPL. I'll give you an example. I had a chef who was working in Pune in one of the world university. He was to be transferred to China. Unfortunately, he didn't have any formal education. But moment I got his RPL certificate with one government of India's insignia of that, he immediately got the visa. So that is the power of an RPL. Even if you are not educated, you can get people recognized for their prior learning. So I think we need to focus on that. And the last one which I will tell is, in particular in our industry, if you want to make that talent or that human capital grow further, then we need to pay a lot of attention on reskilling or upskilling. For example, a person who has started as a steward, gave work for 3-4 years, then the government run another program where he can be trained for a butler, which takes more salary, better respect. So this is just an example. But like that, there are many roles where you start with a basic skill, then let them get trained in the industry for 3-4 years, let them come back to the training center or remotely or directly and get trained for higher skills, higher paid jobs. Then only we create the group. Then only we create a magnet which will attract people to come to the training center, get trained, get placed, and come back once again to get upskilled. So that's what is my small bit. And take a call if you have anything further. I'm there to help.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you've touched upon very, very important points, not just on need for skilling, but also reskilling and upskilling, and also making that in tandem with the labor laws and sometime in the future revision of that. One very important point that I think I can reiterate is the need, when you spoken about the identify the dignity of the laborers that they are skilling, that they were providing skilling to. And I think just skilling opportunities in itself can only solve for so much of the wholesome problem that is there with respect to the dignity of laborers as well. So thank you for bringing that out. I will for now move to Mr. Salil for my next question. Organizations like yours are huge employers in the country when it comes to really identifying the industries in which the youth would want to contribute to, not just as software engineers, automobile engineers, but also a lot of workforce from bottom up to top down. Organizations like Maruti contribute a lot to the employment. So I want to understand your perspective on the same as well. That what are you specifically looking for when you go out to identify the youths that can work for organizations like yours, and then highlight the broader need of the industry as well?
Thank you so much, and very well pointed out. And first of all, it is a privilege and an honor to be part of this distinguished panel and the gathering respected Chief Secretary Sir and the senior officials, delegates. While we were deliberating on the subject right from the morning, one thing is for sure that it is a 100% relevant subject today. And not only relevant, it has become a need of the hour, not only for the state but for the country. We are short of skilled manpower, and I will give you some data related to my industry and overall perspective the way we are trying to move in this direction. And before I start on the questions straight away, let me also give you a perspective of Kashmir. Last year I was undergoing a leadership program where I was picked up for this particular role. And we had to undergo a 1-year developmental journey, sir. I was sent to the interiors of Rajasthan in a village and totally dominated by local people. And there was an NGO which was operating, and we were there to spend some days with them. What I was surprised that I found in that NGO, females from Jammu and Kashmir attending the classes to learn how to make solar panels. It only tells me that there was no dearth of intent or the desire to learn or to come out of these state boundaries and still see what best can be done. There were a good lot of them. We spent 2-3 days with them. They were all experts. They were illiterate but experts. They knew how a solar panel is made, how it is commissioned. They had 100% knowledge about the electrical connections, and they were making it free of cost, only with an intent and a purpose that they go back and implement it and make some livelihood for themselves. So this somehow I resonate and connect with the subject which we are trying to address today. Let me come back to my industry. I represent Maruti Suzuki as the Chief Human Resource Officer. I represent the country's largest car manufacturing company with the maximum market share. Coming to the skill, coming to the jobs available, today we produce more than 21 lakh vehicles per annum at different locations. And it took us 42 years to reach to this stage. The target is to double the production, double the sales, which means we will be producing 4 million vehicles by 2030-31. So what we did in the last 42 years or 43 years is now required to be done in the next 6 to 7 years. So just imagine the kind of a scope, the kind of growth and kind of expansion we are talking about, which ultimately would lead to more number of jobs, more number of the skill requirement in terms of both availability and the capability. Today, so the regular positions which we hold now is around close to 30,000 or 31,000 odd people. We are targeting it to 47,000 by 2030. But this is not only, this 47,000 is of course non-regular as well. But if I talk about the complete ecosystem, right from the front end requirement to the vendor community, the tier 1, tier 2, the component suppliers, we would be generating more than 2 lakh jobs. Ultimately, there is a dearth in terms of the actual requirement which needs to be fulfilled. If I talk about only the ITIs in the country, we have more than 30 lakh ITIs, both NCVT and non-NCVT. Out of which, what you actually consume is not even 4 lakhs. And if I take into account private ITIs, including the government ITIs, the total consumption so far in the country is only 60%. It means 40% of these seats are still available, and there is no way to join. So, what we are now looking at, or my suggestion would be that we need to adopt different ways and means to skill people and move beyond the boundaries of your state. There is enough job for people. Technology is emerging. Even within my sector, the technology is going to make a major big dent, and not only in terms of the product, but in terms of value as well. The second point which I would like to highlight here is the concern today in most of the ITIs or even polytechnics is the curriculum. There is a mismatch in terms of what is being taught and what is the requirement. We have intervened, in fact, with our state governments in Haryana and Gujarat. We were initially, there was apprehension that you adopt the ITI but don't intervene with the course. So we were able to convince them that allow us to at least make some intervention in the course curriculum so that the students are coming out as per our requirement. And what Sandeep was mentioning just a couple of minutes back, that there is an element in terms of fitment, both in terms of culture and practices. I will come to that a little later, but then government of Haryana allowed us to train their trainers. That was the first step, first major breakthrough we took. Not only train the trainers, but also they allowed us to add in the course curriculum whatever we want, but don't change whatever is there in the existing course curriculum. That was the second move. But somehow we were able to see that whatever we are doing in the adopted ITI, because we have adopted more than 100 ITIs in the country, and about 25, 26 of them is directly managed by us. We have adopted women ITIs in the country to suit the requirements, to meet the future requirements, both in terms of gender and other requirements. There was another concern which came up because when we go for recruitment, the various, in fact, different state governments have certain restrictions as far as the domicile requirement is concerned. Because there are restrictions by state governments, I will not name them, but I know that there are restrictions in terms of giving employment to the local population, which otherwise practically is not possible. In spite of your best efforts, in spite of all your sincere efforts, if you look into the practice, if you look into the requirement and the kind of deliberations, both in terms of requirement and also in terms of the guidelines which have been issued by the government, it is impossible that from a state you recruit 85% of the local people. Because it depends again from the culture to culture, demographic to demographic, whether people would accept doing a labor-intensive job or not. In spite of the fact that you are offering them good salary, good wages, dormitories to live in, canteen for food, and a basic standard of living is maintained. So again, these are certain issues which we have highlighted to the government, and we are working very closely with the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. The previous secretary was very closely associated both in terms of the schemes which we adopted, either it was the dual training program, where the student training scheme was adopted by the company, and apart from the student training scheme, now we are talking about the hub and spoke model. That also would be something which we would be serious. And in fact, I would like to offer, especially today, from this platform, that anything we can do for training the trainer, because we have already started with 5-6 states, and we will be keen to participate. So with this, I will stop here. I have a couple of more points to deliberate, but maybe once we get the second chance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think you brought up a very important point with respect to